and try to put the two discussion items on the back end and just try to do some updates on the front end. So Latifa, I know you're having internet problems. If you're in a place where you're able to, do you want to just give some CSP and other updates? And I know there's been a lot of big announcements since this group last met. So
Indeed, I'll keep it short. The hold on the calendar, which I'm not sure if y'all are aware of, was for June 10th. The hold is finally off, and as of yesterday, which gives us great time, April 10th, we were able to get out the first invitation to folks. Not to everyone, just like our corporate social purpose contacts. And so that is exciting. It's going to be at Bridgestone from 4:30 Eastern time, nope, Central time to 6:30. If anyone wants to join, there's a small program looking at having the first lady who's like a very soft green light. It's on her calendar. She wants to be there. It's been on her calendar for like the last 2 months. So Ella, who we work with, anyways, said that she should be there unless, something comes up. And then also we're hoping to have Jim Bryson, who's the commissioner of FNA, give a couple words, and Jim and Terry. So it'll be a very short program, mostly just like networking opportunity for the various corporate folks. Another thing that is occurring, we are right now conducting research to learn from like state regulations and conducting research. This is something that needs to occur, but to identify how we can the executive committee wanted to make sure that businesses that are a good fit for the group are able to be a part of the group, and that it's very clear on the types of businesses that may not be able to participate. So right now we're trying to figure out what that language looks like, and we're talking with general counsel. Another couple other projects that we're working on, I don't know if any of them are super important to reference right now, but I think what I will do, and I'll talk to Nathan about this, is put everything in like a OneDrive that like the meeting notes for this group have, and you'll also have access to the meeting notes from any of those council meetings. So you can always look at those notes prior to these council meetings, committee meetings. I think that's it, Nathan. Let me know if you think I should reference something.
Do you want to mention that we're still in need of some East Tennessee folks in case anybody, you want to add some caveat about what we're looking for?
Yeah, that's a really, so who's on the call? Yeah, we are looking for East Tennessee partners right now. We have a makeup of 14 or 15 members, including Nathan, who's currently representing as a commissioner, but also as a small business owner in East Tennessee. The other East Tennessee partner is Eastman Chemical, an amazing company. They do a lot of great work. They haven't been able to be as active, but Matthew, who is our contact, is always in touch with us. You're looking for East Tennessee contacts. We right now have a meeting coming up. Sorry, the meeting's not actually scheduled as yet, but we're trying to coordinate a meeting with Unum, which is also a top employer in the East Tennessee area, and also McKee in the Chattanooga area, and Desco as well. So the call is, if you know of any East Tennessee partners in the corporate space, in the business space, please do let us know. And if you're willing to connect us, whatever we have, email template, the information. That would be very helpful. That was a good one.
Perfect. Thank you. Any questions or thoughts or ideas for Latifa around corporate social purpose? It's all coming together, and they've been working on it very, very tirelessly, I might add. So, okay, very good. Well, I will offer a quick update on state service plans. So the strategic planning group, I don't know if we actually have a name, this Mod Podge of commissioners that are working together to come up with some sort of an initial starting place for the state service plan. We met again earlier this week. So this was our second meeting. First meeting, we just kind of brainstormed kind of timeline. This meeting, we really focused in on some high-level strategic goals and possible directions, and tried to kind of workshop and wordsmith those a little bit. Jim has shared that out with a few more folks that weren't able to be on that call that are a part of that team. And I think the ask was for them to offer any additional feedback or edits over the next little bit, next week or so. And then I believe, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, the goal is to try to share that with the larger commission a little in advance of the May meeting so that folks can review it. Is that all accurate, Jim?
Yeah.
Perfect. And then at the May meeting, that'll be kind of the first formal chance where we have like an actual document that has had some time spent on it, where we all can kind of respond and determine and discuss if those are the goals. So the goals that we as a team have discussed will be on that document, kind of outlined with some language. One thing that I will share with you all that I think has been really nice, and I think is part of it has actually come out of, at least partially out of this committee, because of the ways in which we had to combine this committee and some clarity on what is the new role of this larger committee. Is it still the same as what it was when it was two separate committees? Those sorts of questions. So this group has been very intentional about trying to rethink the committee structure as well, at least at a high level, to make sure it actually aligns with the work. Because Jim has shared that our current kind of committee model and structure, for the most part, has remained relatively unchanged for quite some time. So this, with us doing a new state service plan, we thought this was a chance to maybe redefine, relook at, are these the right committees? Are they the right direction? Is there a chance to better align some of the committees and structures with the actual programs and work? So, and lots of your all's thoughts and feedback has informed a lot of those things. So, again, all very high level, nothing final, but we're hoping to at least have a draft of a document to share with you all, so we can at least start having a conversation about it. So, any questions about that? Jim, anything I missed on that lane?
I don't think so.
Good. Okay. With that, the two discussion items really on the agenda for today. One is Day on the Hill. So just a little bit of a recap. I think so. Amy was there. Of course, Candace, Jim, myself. Latifa was there. Caroline, were you at Day on the Hill? I don't recall. If I didn't think so. Okay. So really, I think if we want to take maybe just 5-10 quick minutes while we've got some time, if there's any, overall, I'll start and say, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was wonderful. Lunch was fun. Lunch was interesting. Trying to get lunch sorted. But in terms of the actual meetings, everything, at least I thought, went really, really smooth this year. I've heard lots of positive feedback. So kudos to Jim and all of the staff folks that were involved, because I really do think it went really, really well this year. This is my second year with Volunteer Tennessee's Day on the Hill. And I definitely think it seemed to be a little smoother. I felt like I knew what was happening. I knew where we were going. I knew all the things. So that's good. So I maybe we take the next 5-10 minutes and just see if any folks have, the staff as well. So staff as well, just a chance to kind of share, here's an idea, or here's a thought, or here's what worked, here's what didn't work. Or so I'll just kind of open it up and people can just kind of jump in, and I'll take some notes, but just stuff for us to think about for next year, in addition to other feedback and comments that Jim has received.
Hey, this is Amy. I thought it went really well. In fact, we got in to talk to a couple of folks that were just drop-offs. So, I mean, having all that information, having our list of people in advance. So I like to pull a little cheat sheet on each of them, to be able to highlight their interests if they align with ours, and getting that. I think it really helps a day or two in advance for each of us to get the list of who we're going to visit, so that we have that time to look it up. So that's always helpful. And I just think lunch was a little funky. It's okay. I think the only confusing thing was that end of day meeting was in a different location, and it was a little confusing for folks, but it was a little bit of a jumble. But otherwise, everything went really well. The materials, were helpful. Everything was organized well. I know that's a lot of work. And I just want to say kudos to Jim and his staff and everyone who worked on it.
Thank you, Amy. Other thoughts? And staff as well, Candace, Latifa, Jim, if you all have things that at least it's out there in the open, so we've got things to think about next year.
I guess I can say that we had interns this year. I think we've used interns in the past, but that was extremely helpful. And we were a little bit more intentional about the work that we gave them. And so usually it would be staff doing that. And that we already have like a ton of work. So that was really great. And also to the intern's point, so I always create a cheat sheet for myself, Amy, where like got different connection points for each legislator that I'm going to be with. So I can share that with the, commissioners or whomever. I think if we again, are intentional about recruiting for Day on the Hill interns, or at least, talking to the interns we have about Day on the Hill, then we could have them do a little bit more to support, including, I think, which would be really easy, a template email follow-up, because I know that we're supposed to reach out, and as in the commissioner's program staff, but I think that might help with like that reach out follow-up afterwards, like if you have like a couple of templates. And we could do that.
Thank you, Latifa. Candace, I think you had your hand up.
Yes. I just wanted a little bit of feedback on the training that Jim and I were able to prepare for everybody. Was it helpful? Is it something to institute? Should we is there more in addition that we can prepare for in advance? It's good. It's nice to start a year ahead of time, but just looking for just feedback from you guys on the training, if it was helpful, and if there's anything in addition that we could add to the actual training.
I can start. I loved it. Granted, I was an advocate for it on the front end, but no, I thought it was very, very, very helpful. Just being able to talk through the expectation, talk through some of those that seem like very simple and straightforward questions. Everything from how's a meeting going to go to what do I wear and where do I need to be and what does a schedule look like? The morning of, I know I will. Nestor's not on the call right now, but Nestor absolutely loved. He's texted me as well saying so, loved the training. But I think for him, this is Nestor's first time doing it, right? And for him, if he had walked into the Cordell Hull building, been given all this information, been given a quick 45-minute and, debrief and then said, best of luck, that would have been so overwhelming. So I think, of course, his opinion's one opinion, but I do think, especially for folks like Nestor or whether it be AmeriCorps folks, whether it be agency partners, whether it be new commissioners, I think it's especially helpful for folks that have never done it before to know what it actually looks like on the front end. So I know it was very helpful to him. But even for me as somebody who's done it before, it was a good refresher. And I think it was a good way to kind of get your nerves and stress out. To not make it feel like it was all kind of falling on you the morning of. So I loved it. I found it very helpful. In terms of content during it, I'll be honest, I probably need to go back and look at my notes. I thought it was well covered. I thought the material was well covered. We talked about these, you did the sample meeting, like the mock meeting. We went over documents. Jim, I think, or you were one of the two of you actually pulled up documents and showed folks what they would look like so they knew exactly what was in their packets. Saw a sample schedule, saw all the things, talked through lunch, talked through where to park, talked through what to wear. I mean, I feel like you all covered a lot in a short amount of time. So kudos.
Okay, perfect. Well, I guess I can just end it with this last question. Is the timing of the training? Because we did it maybe a week out. I think that works best for us because we have more material that's accurate to present. And it's a little bit still fresh on people's minds. But I like to take it into consideration because, we also don't want to pile too much on Jim to be able to do the training and the day and the timing span that we did it. So just a quick question on the timing of it. Is it something that we are able to do a little bit earlier, or was the timing pretty much on par with, with everything?
Also, anybody else? I feel like I'm talking a lot.
Well, I don't know if anybody on this call was actually,
It may just-
now
it
that
may
I'm looking at it, I don't think anybody on this
Maybe-
call was even at the training.
It's just me. It's just
So maybe this is the wrong group to poll.
No. I will answer the question purely from Nathan's perspective. I think I agree with your sentiments. I think there's a fine line that we have to walk between. You want it to be, people want to know in advance, and there's benefit to that, right? And Amy just mentioned, it was nice being able to have some of the materials in advance, right? Which I agree with. So I think there's a fine line between wanting to get things to people in advance to where they have plenty of time to review and plenty of time to ask questions. But from a logistics standpoint, I think I also agree with your comments, Candace, that the materials are more accurate. at that point, I mean, had we have done it significantly earlier, even a couple of weeks earlier, I don't even know if we would have necessarily had the final list of who all was going, because I think Jim was still trying to get some clarity from folks on that. So it was kind of like this perfect little, far enough in advance to where people feel prepared, but close enough to the event that things are accurate and all the right people can be on the call. I thought a week was good. I don't know if I would go any closer to the actual day. Could you maybe bump it up a little bit more? Possibly, but I think where it landed was fine. And you had good attendance too, which I think says a
Yes.
lot.
Okay. Well, perfect. Well, then those were all the questions I had. Thank you.
Other thoughts and comments, ideas around Day on the Hill? The one other big comment I would add is, and I know it wasn't necessarily intentionally planned this way because we kind of just voted and did like a poll on it, but it not being right on top of the conference was very nice. Because I know that there was a chance that it could, but with the special session and all the things, that was part of the reasoning behind trying to adjust it. But I did like that there was a nice little gap. I'm sure the staff probably appreciated that they weren't right on top of one another. So I know that kind of ebbs and flows year to year, just depending on availability and schedules. But I do think that was nice. It was nice to have a little bit of a gap. So. And then Amy also added in the comments, if you didn't say, kudos for getting more AmeriCorps partners to attend.
I was just going to add on really quickly to Amy's point. I think that's because it was so far from not so far, but because we had a gap between then and the conference. I actually haven't heard that from anyone, but I infer. And also, we were able to do a little bit more, I think, in communicating with the partners, AmeriCorps partners, because we knew a little bit more in advance, I think. So that was good.
Good. Other thoughts? Jim, anything on your end that you'd like, the group to think about or ponder on for next year?
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I think it went really well. I agree that, there is the tension between trying to get the materials out far enough in advance, but also being able to make sure that those materials are accurate and correct. And also again, we didn't really know who was going to show up until the day when people showed up, which is that is the one thing I would say from maybe this committee's perspective. I've been kind of saying it for years that the commission says that it's really important to have this Day on the Hill, but then we only have 10 commissioners actually show up. And that's a historical trend that has not really changed over the years. So I think this committee could maybe take the lead in addressing that with the full commission to say, look, either people have to show up or we need to stop doing this because we can't rely on the partners showing up to make our Day on the Hill work. We were fortunate that we did have a lot of partners show up, but that's also not always the case. I mean, we had more show up this year than last year, and that helped us be able to cover as many of the visits as we did. But it was probably about twice the number of partners this year as what we had last year. So if we had what last year's number of partners and this year's number of commission members, we would have not been able to do nearly as many visits. So anyway, I think that's something to bring up to the full commission, that it is a lot of travel within a fairly short period of time, with having the Day on the Hill and then before that the GBSA conference. But if it really is something that the commission thinks is a valuable thing to do, we need to have people commit to it. And and that's not saying, people have emergencies that pop up and there's nothing they can do about it. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about people just saying, no, I'm not going to be there. So I'd like to see our numbers increase for participation.
It's very good. Thank you, Jim. Very,
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Yeah.
And just want to offer a quick note. Terry just texted as well. I think she has some flooding, so she may attempt to join. So just wanted to throw that on there as well. Okay, other thoughts around Day on the Hill? I thought all of that's very good and some very valuable items, especially your comments, Jim. I really appreciate that, and I would agree. Other Day on the Hill thoughts? Okay. Well, with that, I'm going to transition us to our last discussion item, and I don't anticipate this will take a significant amount of time because I don't think we're necessarily in the weeds. But want to talk a little bit about the road show now that we're officially through Day on the Hill. I think that was the goal, was to get through Day on the Hill. So just to offer some context, I think everybody on this call has at least heard some high level context at some point, but just for the sake of making sure everybody's on the same page. During the retreat, this most recent commission retreat, really trying to brainstorm one of the key ideas that came out of specifically more so the communications committee side of this team was how do we just increase the awareness and perception of the programs of the commission as a whole, and just kind of raise that brand awareness a little bit and let people know that it exists. There's still the perception was from that conversation that there was still a large number of entities across the state that are very engaged in kind of the volunteerism space that still don't really know what Volunteer Tennessee is, or only know it in name, but don't really know its purpose or function to the programming or the work that it does to support some of those agencies. And for that matter, maybe even perhaps some agencies that receive funding that maybe some of the people that are receiving services from that agency, or even some of the folks that are working at that, don't really even know about Volunteer Tennessee, even though that they're receiving some funding beyond the fact that they got some dollars. So just really intentional conversation about how do we uplift and really talk about the amazing work that Volunteer Tennessee is doing, and just try to raise that awareness across the state. So that was kind of the starting place for that conversation. Then during the retreat, of course, Jim led us through the initial conversation around the state service plan, and kind of what that timeline would look like. And it was mentioned as a part of the state service plan that there's traditionally some component of public or like partner input, whether that be through polling, like surveying, or some in-person conversations. I think both have happened in the past in some capacity, but that normally is a part of the process as well. So in that retreat, we had the need to uplift and kind of, highlight Volunteer Tennessee a little bit better, and also this conversation about the state service plan focus groups. And initially essentially what came out of that was, what does it look like to merge those two efforts and get on the road? And we've been calling it the Road Show. I don't know if that's actually the name we will use. I think it's fun. For some reason I see like a little cartoon of a bus or something with the Volunteer Tennessee logo on it. I don't know, that might be cheesy, but something, something like that. But this idea of, is there a way that we could get some staff, some VT staff, maybe a couple of commissioners in some key areas across the state, boots on the ground, one, to just kind of connect and talk about the amazing work and network that the commission is doing, but then also to perhaps host some of those focus group sessions that can help inform and help us finesse the state service plan. So that's really kind of where all of this started. At a very high level, was this idea of a road show with the purpose of raising the awareness of the commission and also collecting some community input. In the middle of that, we also, of course, had a natural disaster, or kind of in the midst of that, with an increased focus on, of course, disaster preparedness, emergencies, all of those things, long-term recovery. So then there was this component of, is there also a way to do a little bit of some public education as a part of that roadshow, as kind of a small add-in? And that's where this idea of perhaps doing some education in the areas that Dawn is working in, right? So really thinking about disaster preparedness, whatever that looks like. That could be a session, that could be like maybe a fun thing at a school where they're building their own go bags. I don't know, right? But just something that was a little bit more educational for the public. So with that, that's what brought us to today. Nothing has officially happened, nothing is public, but just trying to kind of start fresh with, that's the concept, that's the idea. A couple of caveats that I will add before I'll share the document that I've got pulled up on the other screen. For the most part, and you'll see this, I think, when you pull the document up, The goals are fairly simple and straightforward. Raising awareness and collecting information is a pretty straightforward goal. It's not overly complicated. With that, I don't anticipate there being a ton of work involved with the roadshow. Most of it's really going to be logistics, right? I mean, you've got to get people from point A to point B, know where you're having conversations and meetings, those sorts of things. So with that, for today's conversation, I probably don't want us to get so much in the weeds of like dates, locations, times, because I feel like a lot of that's really going to be dependent upon Jim and his team, frankly, right? And when when the team's available, where the locations might be. And some of that's just going to be a little bit of logistics magic that has to happen on the back end. So for today, really just kind of want to chat through the broad goals of the roadshow, what we hope to see accomplished through the roadshow, what those things might look like in terms of, okay, if you're spending a day in Knoxville doing a roadshow stop, that's one of the locations, perhaps. What does that day actually look like? Like what is happening in order to accomplish these goals? So do I have screen share permissions? Okay. Yes, I do. Okay. Hopefully it will allow you to see what I'm about to pull up. Okay. And nobody has seen this, by the way. So this is my initial draft that I've been working on in the last week. Again, this is just goals. This is not in the weeds of locations, dates, timelines, all of that. I think I'll lean more heavily, work with Jim and Latifa and Candace to figure out. But really from our perspective, just kind of the goals. So real quick, I'll kind of run through what I've got on this. Again, this is a high level draft. We could toss this whole thing, but I thought it was a good starting place for us to think about so that we can actually start putting some things on paper. So goal 1, increase awareness of Volunteer Tennessee and its mission. That is pretty straightforward. Within that really is this idea of fostering some new relationships, strengthening connections with agencies on the ground who are engaged in service and volunteerism broadly. Looking back at some of the notes over the last year and some of our committee conversations, one of the items that has come up is there's a lot of wonderful agencies and partners that we work with because they receive funding from us or because they're a volunteer center grant recipient from us or something along those lines, that are more familiar with the commission, at least at a surface level. But there's also a lot of agencies that are operating in the volunteer kind of management service space that maybe aren't receiving any financial or resource support from us at this time, and honestly may not really even know that we exist. I mean, that's just the reality, right? So they wouldn't even know perhaps to consider applying for a grant or to utilize the Tennessee Serves Network, right? They're just not on their radar. So in addition to trying to strengthen and have some connections with existing folks, is there really an opportunity just to get some new people in the room, right? People that are doing that kind of work. If anything, just so, Latifa and Jim and Candace and the commissioners on the call just have some friendly faces and more connections, right? Like if Latifa was able to spend some more time in East Tennessee, finding some East Tennessee business partners might be easier, right? So really just very surface level, there's just value in some relationship building. Of course, as a part of that is actually highlighting the ongoing program partnerships and impact that VT is directly involved with. So we are talking about AmeriCorps, Tennessee Serves, Corporate Social Purpose, the conference or programs, GB, all the things, all the many initiatives of the commission. Is there one nice place in that kind of a setting, right, where you're just kind of networking, where you can say, here's who we are, here's all the things that we do, plug in where you can, right? Is there a way to kind of say that? And then, of course, on the high levels, just to kind of strengthen brand identity and public engagement with Volunteer Tennessee. What does that actually look like? The idea that's been floated in some other conversations has really probably been at its most simple form, just getting people in a room together, right? Maybe it's some light refreshments, reception style, in some sort of a space with some key invites, and a brief program. I almost similar to what we're doing for the CSP kickoff, really, right? Not as large, not as robust, not a 45-minute program or anything, right? But quick 15, 20 minutes of some remarks and just a chance for all the people to be in a room and meet one another. Ideally, agencies that we either are already engaged with or could be, as well as potentially, this has come up multiple times, another good opportunity to invite some elected officials to something, especially because we're in their districts for that thing, right? So being able to invite folks to that thing to hear not the 5-minute version that we gave during Day on the Hill, but something a little bit more in depth and actually get to meet some partners in a more casual setting might be nice. So that was kind of goal number 1, just increase awareness about who we are, what we do. Goal number 2, of course, is gathering community input on the state service plan. As I shared, that probably is a focus group. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. Some sort of a focus group with some key stakeholders, whoever those might be. as a part of that. So I don't imagine that being a significant number of people, but again, a small, intimate group of people that can offer some feedback on the state service plan. And then goal number 3 is education around disaster preparedness and volunteer engagement in emergencies. That could go a lot of different directions. That's why under strategy and target audience, you'll see it's kind of to be determined. Of course, definitely would invite Don's opinions and thoughts on this. This could be a session. He did a session, for example, for me over spring break with a group of Roan scholars that were in Nashville. They absolutely loved it. It was like a high level, not quite a CERT session, but kind of a high level intro about disaster preparedness, how to make a go kit, all the things. So it could be something educational program wise, or it could be as simple as we're going to do some sort of a table pop up where people can come by and build their own go bag. I don't know. So it could be something more interactive, or it could be something more educational. But the thought is in a single stop, being able to try and accomplish all 3 of those tasks, some sort of a gathering, a focus group, and something educational. Perhaps all in one space. That's a possibility. Perhaps this could be viewed as 3 small events within a couple of hours period. I don't know. I think all of that's up in the air. But that's what that looks like. So I'll pause there. Really just am curious to know, one, are these not worried about the wording necessarily. This is not a public external document. This is just something for us to operate off of. But are these the right goals? Do these align with some of the conversations that have already happened? Is there something else we want to get out of the roadshow that we haven't mentioned? If we're already going to have staff and some commissioners on the ground, is there something else that we need to jump on and an opportunity that we need to utilize since we're already going to be there? There was a mention a couple of times we've talked about, is there an opportunity to engage some CSP people in this? Perhaps, is there, could a goal 4 be a mini local gathering? I don't know, right? So all of those things are up in the table, up in the air. So I'll pause there, but a little bit of a starting place. Just curious to see where people's heads are, what kind of thoughts they have about what's on the screen or what's missing. Do we love it? Do we hate it? All the things. And I invite staff too, because you all will be heavily involved. So I invite staff input as well. Again, not trying to get so much in the weeds of timing and dates and all of that, locations, because that'll vary. But in terms of content, what are thoughts?
Oh, Nathan, I think the content is great. I think one of the things, and it's on here, but I think one of the things that we had talked about kind of early on is like how can we make sure that people really know about the Tennessee Serves Network, and in particular to get nonprofits to sign up for it, to post their volunteer opportunities and help spread the word in communities for people to, and that's up at the top, that you already have under the spreading the awareness part, that the second bullet point, I think, under the top, the goal 1.
Oh, yep. I say,
yeah.
yep.
I mean, it's already there. So,
but maybe more intentionally elevated is what you're saying. A little bit more intentionally.
Yeah, I think we don't want to kind of gloss over that as we're doing the roadshow. I think we want to make sure that it's a strong part of what we're doing as part of the roadshow, to build up that network and get more people to sign up for it, both agencies and volunteers, because I think there's lots of room for growth with that network, but we don't really have the capacity to reach people directly from Nashville. And so if we're out in the communities and we can talk to folks about it, I think that's a great opportunity.
Awesome. Other thoughts? Latifa, thoughts, anything from the CSP side? Any opportunities you see? And maybe not, and that's fine, but.
Yeah, I was just about to say, so on the CSP end, I think what you referenced, Nathan, already is what I would hope to see. A special invitation maybe to join this very general event where CSPs reference, or maybe a special business one, business specific. I also am just thinking of time. I know we're not talking about time just yet, but on the AmeriCorps end, we do a couple of things in the summer, and it's really not a lot, but just thinking about adding on to that. it makes me a tad weary to go back out to Easton. So myself and Lizzie, this is not every year, but we're supposed to do about 2 to 3 site visits. We've got 2 coming up in East Tennessee. So it would be great, maybe aligned with that is what I should say, and not have us coming back to East Tennessee probably like a couple weeks later, because that would actually be in June. Yeah, but I think this looks really good, Nathan.
Awesome. Very good. Very good. Candace, event planner extraordinaire. What thoughts might you have?
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of questions. So that's why I was just, sometimes it's just like, let me just wait. But I mean, I think for the bare bones of, of what you put together, it looks really good. I would, if I would add an initiative that we could possibly sort of align with, it would maybe be our award of excellence. How do we also get schools and youth involved? We have people that are repeat winners every year of award of excellence. So, just seeing, and I really love the idea of also, involving some type of hands-on thing that gets people there. It's we can talk for 15 minutes, yeah, sure, but what are we going to do for the rest of the time? So, we can develop a strong program that we're that we're going through, of course, but just really focusing on what that looks like you guys are saying, I know we're not focusing on time or frequency of what we're doing, but I think this is a great start.
Good. And then Latifa added in the chat subgrantees.
In
Sorry,
our
as in
volunteer
inviting.
centers, even if we are, this might be an opportunity as well to get connected with find a way to get connected with the Higher Education Consortium. As we're looking at different colleges, it's a little bit less hectic in the summer than it would be in the fall and in the spring. We're doubled on one with with ETSU, hint hint, or even maybe the University of the South, so, but we do have partners out there that could definitely look in, that could possibly support the space, the capacity for what it is that we're looking for.
Yeah, that's very helpful, Candace. I appreciate that comment. I agree. I definitely, in planning this document, I've actually floated the idea by a couple of folks here in Northeast Tennessee, a couple of friends in the chat area. I floated it by a couple of partners in the Memphis area that I just happen to have some relationships with about like, hey, if Volunteer Tennessee was to come into town and do like a 1-day something to just meet folks, engage, do some education, talk about opportunities. What do you think involvement would look like? And I definitely think that there's probably the potential that a region or wherever the sites are, right, whatever the locations are, and we'll figure that out, perhaps can take a little bit of ownership for it. I think that I think that there's probably some interest and opportunity for that. One, I think that allows us to be able to do this for minimal resources in some capacities, right, which is always nice. But two, I mean, I think about like is there a CSP partner that would be like, yeah, come do it in my space, right? Like that would be awesome. Or a higher ed partner, or chamber partners, right, that are willing to offer up some space. There may be some local entities that would be willing to sponsor some food or sponsor an activity, right? So it may even be that every stop isn't exactly the same, right? I know that the organized part of me twitches at that thought a little bit. But then another part of me also says that there's something nice about that if there's a little bit of ownership, because the day will look like whatever the day needs to look like for Knoxville. The day's going to look like whatever the day needs to look like for Memphis, right? Depending on what the needs are, right? So maybe it is that there are a couple of CSP gatherings, but maybe they're not at every stop, right? Maybe it's just the ones where we happen to have some CSP folks, right? Or we happen to be in a space where we do have a good number of higher ed potential partners. Maybe there's some intentionality behind us trying to do something special in that area. So I do like this idea of really trying to think through all of the stakeholders that aren't just our traditional agency partners. So I really, really appreciate your comments, Candace.
No problem.
Anything else that we would want to get out of? Again, we've got boots on the ground. It's already a lot. It sounds like we're going to do a lot. So maybe the list is long enough, which is good. This is helpful. So what I think, we've got about 15 minutes left. I'll quit sharing my screen for now. What I'm anticipating, and I'm going to throw this probably to Jim, Candace, and Latifa as a question, is since we've got perhaps a little bit of framework, I'll share this out with the committee as a whole and ask if there's just, and then I'll probably send it out this afternoon and just ask if there's a little bit of additional feedback or anything else folks need or want for consideration. But perhaps would there be a time that at a minimum, probably maybe Latifa, Candace, and I, Jim, if you want to be in or not in a conversation, but maybe for us to actually just sit down and get in the weeds of what this might actually look like and start talking about more logistic things, because this all looks great on paper. Trying to figure out what does it look like in terms of an actual schedule during a day, right? What does that look like? How does that work? Then we might be able to identify, are there some costs associated? Are there space needs associated? And we could try to workshop and brainstorm, because some of that may guide us and help us to dwindle this list down a little bit. Would that be a realistic next step, Jim, Candace, Latifa? It's just for us to really get in the weeds and as a small group, put pen to paper.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Good. I
think
thought
that we
so,
could-
but
The sooner the better.
agreed. Well, if I can ask then, Latifa, Candace, if you all, the two of you I know have some busy schedules since you all are able to communicate a little bit more regularly. If you all want to maybe come up with a couple of potential time, I mean, I'm even next week, I'm as early as next week, I could make that happen, and maybe send me some dates or something, and we could find a time to just hop on that. And if there's any other folks on the call, commissioners, that would want to just be super engaged in that in the weeds conversation and have capacity, I think we would invite that as well. But I think that'll be the conversation where we really get into kind of the nitty gritty. And that's probably where a lot of Candace's questions are, I imagine.
Absolutely. And is this meeting that is the meeting that we're having with you before or after you solicit input from the remaining members of communications and strategic partnership?
I will send this out today. I'll send a debrief
Okay.
email from this meeting today. And I'll ask for folks. So let's say our meeting's early to mid next week. I'll ask folks that in the next few days if they just have a quick little bullet point to add or some feedback, just so we'll have it for our conversation, perhaps, if there's something we've not considered. But I'll try to make that happen before our conversation so we have everything in front of us.
Okay.
Does that work? Or would you prefer it be the other way around?
I think it's probably going to be a back and forth conversation
Mhm.
throughout the initial plannings of it anyway, just to iron out the details of what's happening. So
Yep. No, that
either
works.
is fine. I was just
Okay.
asking for a little clarification, but
Yep,
either
no.
will be fine.
That'll work. So I'll make it a point to get this document I just shared with you all out before our meeting, and then we'll go from there. And yeah. And then Amy asked in the chat, do you have it in the budget to pass out Little Volunteer Tennessee or AmeriCorps stickers at these events? So Amy, that is a great question. We have no budget. So I did have a chance to chat prior to this conversation, did have a chance to touch base with Jim and Terry to get a little bit of clarification on timing, which Latifa mentioned, so we can make sure we're avoiding any other big priorities for the Volunteer Tennessee, and also through money. So of course, we do not have in this year's budget an actual budgeted dollars for the roadshow. We do have some budgeted dollars for travel that Jim has shared we perhaps can tap into. We'll just need to look at what that might look like in terms of, again, that may be what impacts some dates and times and who's going and all the things. But so on the travel side, which is the more expensive side, there are some dollars we can tap into per Jim. On the actual programming side, right? So if we are doing a reception in Chattanooga, and there's some costs affiliated with space or food, those are going to be costs that we're going to have to find some dollars for. Again, I do think from some initial conversations and floats I've put out there, I do genuinely think we could probably find some space for no cost, and perhaps even identify some partners at the local level that may be willing to sponsor some, $500 of light refreshments or something, right? Like some finger foods or something like that. So I think the goal is, and I think that's probably some of what Candace and Latifa and I will be able to chat about, is how do we do this on a shoestring/no string budget? But printing wise, specifically around Volunteer Tennessee stickers, AmeriCorps, that's probably a Jim question. I don't know if you all already have some stuff like that in house, like little swag and things like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do. We've got some writing pens and um, some note tablets, and then we have they're the stickers that we send to programs to put to display that says it's has the Volunteer Tennessee logo and the AmeriCorps logo, and it says, you know, I can't remember exactly what the statement is, but something along the lines of this is provided with federal funds or something like that. So it's not really something that you could give to people and have it be like, oh, here's something that's just a Volunteer Tennessee sticker or an AmeriCorps sticker. But Caroline put something in the chat about AmeriCorps stickers that we can order. But in terms of like just straight up Volunteer Tennessee stuff outside of the pens and the writing tablets, we don't have like little stickers or something like that.
Very good. Amy, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I was just trying to think of a way I'll leave behind, you know.
Yes. I do love, I'm looking at Jim's box, not Jim specifically, but I'm looking at Jim's box, and I'm looking at the Volunteer Tennessee logo on my screen right now. And I'm thinking about your comment, Amy, and then Caroline thinking about the AmeriCorps stickers, which you just shared, which I love. Honestly, the Volunteer Tennessee logo, the way it looks, I don't know if we're allowed to do this, but just that die cut as the logo by itself looks like a really good sticker. Like it's a nice, even geometric shape that is pretty simple. So even outside of the roadshow, right? Those might be something nice to just kind of have on hand as some additional swag. So I don't know what stuff like that looks like, but
yeah, well, we could potentially look at state printing. Yeah. Candace is saying she could look into the pricing. So yeah, Candace, it would also be a great patch. And that actually, when we, I mean, being the commission, when the commission went through several years ago on rebranding and developed this logo, it was very intentionally developed to be a logo, a shield, something that could be very versatile in how we use it. So yeah, Candace, if you don't mind checking with, let's go to state printing first to see if they can do just plain old stickers. And if, what that might cost us. And I don't know, is that what you're thinking of, Nathan, is like stickers, or are you talking about like window clings? Because the window clings are different.
I'm thinking stickers, like stickers,
on
like
my
I put on my
Yeti,
water bottle.
on my computer.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
okay.
Yeah.
Stickers, yeah. Well, that probably would be easier anyway. That probably would be cheaper. So yeah, Candace, if you don't mind checking with state printing on that. And Nestor's saying that he would definitely wear a VT logo, which is something that we can also explore separately to get patches for commissioners and staff that they could maybe either sew on or iron on to things. That might be something worth. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to try and do leave behinds of patches, because those probably would be kind of expensive. But stickers, I think, would probably be cheap enough that we could get a bunch and have those on hand and have as leave behinds.
Perfect. Okay, I know we've got about 9 minutes left. I think this is a great conversation about all the things. So just to recap, I'm going to send this document out to the whole team. That way, if there's folks on the committee that didn't have a chance to offer some quick input, they can offer a couple of quick thoughts. Latifa, Candace, you'll let me know when next week perhaps we want to get together. And I've got some pretty wide flexibility, so feel free to do it when it's convenient for you all. And then we'll kind of go from there on this, right? And we'll get more in the nitty gritty weeds and come up with additional questions we may have from that. Is that good? Is that accurate?
Sounds good. I think I should reference too, talking about bare bones. Of course, we are one person down, and so whatever the expectations might look like for getting out certain types of marketing and materials, I think if this committee could support in that, or just, I guess, also just knowing expectations might need to be lowered a little bit, or the committee is able to support in certain things.
Thank you. Very helpful reminder. And Candace, is that what you were going to share as well?
No, I was just saying a thumbs up that that sounds good. I think it's a good plan of action for us to know what type of information and feedback we can get at the May meeting. So I'm all aboard, with the logistics up until then.
Perfect. That sounds great. Okay, with that, we've got about 7 minutes left. That's the official agenda. Anything else folks on the call have, staff, commissioners, questions, things you want to bring attention to? Okay, well, with that, I think we will adjourn and look forward to seeing you all. May 2nd will be here in like no time. So
Yeah.
I think is that what, 2 weeks from now? 3 weeks from now?
It is, what's today's Friday? So 1, 2, 3. Yep, 3 weeks.
Right at 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Latifa, Jim, can you all sound for just, I have a AmeriCorps question, completely unrelated. I just have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye,
Have a great weekend.
everyone.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thanks.
Hold on just 1 second, guys. Let me stop the recording first.
Oh, you're good. It's not.